Never the favorite, but always in charge. Because when it's time to make money, I see all the cards. Generational weight rests on my shoulders, but I can't bend, I can't lean, or risk getting pulled over. When I started, I saw green, but now I see gold. The leaves are changing, and it's getting too cold. Soon they will be red, or worse yet, the trees bare. Then I will have nothing, nothing but despair. November rain stabs me in the back. That's the reward for busting my ass. The city screams out in the night, red, white, and blue, flashing lights. Rather than stay, I decide to flee. I would be a fool to rest in these Gotham streets. Time has run out with me cast aside. At least I had courage and never lost my stride. 4 nines fine, the view was divine, but all I could see was a finish line. Buffaloes in the street and eagles in the sky. They watch me as I drive by, but there is not much to see. I am a one-man show, all alone, slowly driving down the yellow brick road. It is windy in Chicago, and hell has frozen over. I'm your host, Negative Nick, and this is the No Good News Podcast. I know we have many newcomers to the No Good News community, so here are a few quick tips before we continue. As always, timestamps are in the description. The knowledge, teachings, and history within these episodes are cumulative. So visiting previous episodes will be beneficial. I think we've got 6 up on the channel right now, and this will be episode number 7. Lastly, these episodes are intended to both entertain and inform, while being a way for me to connect with the people I care about all across this great nation of ours. So sit back, relax, and let's have some fun. All right, so we're going to start off today by talking about my travels. I've heard from a lot of people that this is your favorite segment, and that makes total sense. So that's how we're going to start today. I went to 2 major locations since last speaking with you guys in September. First of those would be Chicago. So my adventure in Chicago was very, very interesting. It was a 60-hour adventure, 60 hours, and it was done by car. So the way that worked was on a Friday, I was able to sneak out of work, and I am going to use the word sneak, and I drove 14 hours to Chicago. To be more specific, I drove to a place called Gary, Indiana, from Charlotte, North Carolina. I was unaware that Gary is one of the most dangerous places in the United States. Did you know that, producer?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either, actually. And that's why I got the hotel there. And I'm looking on my phone as I'm driving, and I'm fighting sleep demons. I'm trying to stay awake. And I'm looking just for a cheap hotel. I'm looking for something cheap, close to Chicago, but cheap. And the cheapest thing I find is in Gary, Indiana. And I understand why. Because when I pull up to this joint, it's 11 p.m. at night, and I shit you not, when I get out of my car, there's 3 guys on the corner, eyeing up my vehicle.
Yeah.
They want to take my tires and shit. I rarely do this, but I evacuated my whole car. I took everything in my car into the hotel.
That's crazy.
Yeah, usually when I travel, I just take in one little small bag, pajamas for the night, toothbrush, whatever. But I took everything just because I was these guys are looking at my car, and my car's a piece of shit, by the way. It's fucking 2012, my car. But just the way they were looking at it got me nervous, so I brought everything inside. And no matter how much I travel, and I do a lot of that, I'm never able to find 2 showers that work the same. I feel like every time I get in the shower, it's like a puzzle, like an enigma that I have to solve. You gotta turn, sometimes you turn the handle to the right, sometimes to the left, sometimes you gotta pull it out of the wall. Sometimes there's a little nozzle that you got to pull up. Sometimes the shower head moves and there's settings. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's an electric panel on the wall. I could go on and on and on. For all the things in our country that have become homogenized, and people always say America feels the same and it feels corporate, we have to standardize showers. That's the one thing that needs to be standardized, because it's just so annoying. It's every single time. And I know for most people that doesn't really matter, because most people are probably using at most 2 different showers a month, right? But for me, I'm up there, I'm hitting 8 or 9, So I'm constantly confused. And like some places that I go to, like here's a great example. When I'm in New Jersey and I want to do hot water, I turn the handle to the right. When I'm in Carolina, hot water is to the left. So the first few days when I come home or I switch locations, I'm constantly burning or freezing myself. Always. And then, so now what I've started doing is I turn on the water before I get into the shower. Now that creates splash. Sometimes a little bit of water comes out of the shower. But I'm willing to deal with that now because I'm tired of being inside of the shower and dealing with the shock either way. You understand? So like, it's just, I don't know. I get a little annoyed by the way that these showers, they're all totally different. But anyway, back to Chicago. I wake up on Saturday. So I get to Gary, Indiana, which is about 40 minutes away from Chicago. I get there Friday night. Saturday morning, wake up, drive 40 minutes into the city, go to park my car. $35 to park my car. And that was per hour, which is insanity. So I was in the city for 12 hours total, give or take an hour. I spent over $270. I think it was like $278. I think that's the number. Just parking that day. Is that crazy math?
It's a shame.
And I kept moving my car, I kind of incur some fault here because I said to myself, God, it's $35 an hour. There has to be something cheaper. So I leave, right? I leave the parking garage. So they hit me with, I think it was like $70, whatever. I was there for like 2 hours. I switch locations thinking, maybe if I go a little bit further out of the city, maybe if I extend my walk from like 5 minutes to 20 minutes, it'll get cheaper. I went to one 20 minutes away, it was like 40 an hour. The price went up.
Gosh.
So I just could not, there was no peace. I could not find peace. It was ridiculous. And then I moved my car again a third time. But every time you're moving the car, you're like getting an additional fee because like you're let's say you leave the parking garage at like 12:10, for example. They hit you with that full second hour, even though you only use 10 minutes of it or whatever. And then when you enter the next parking garage, immediately you get hit with another entry fee. So it was $278. I'm pretty close if I'm wrong. Just in 12 hours. I hated that. City was freezing cold. I knew that would be the case because I'm going in fucking November, right? But here's the thing. It's just a city. That's what it is. It's just a city. People have been asking me like, should I go? Is it worth my time? It's just another American city. So, I mean, the skyline's cool, sure. It was actually very clean. I was in the center of the city. The outer parts of the city are quite dirty, I would say. But like near the Bean, which is like a landmark,
Yes.
right? Or the Riverwalk or Navy Pier. I was in that zone. It was very clean, and I think it was safe.
Did you touch the bean?
Did I touch it? No, but I stood right next to it. It looks filthy, dude. Like it was covered. It was like it's supposed to be reflective, and I was trying to get like a cool photo of myself in the reflection, but there was so many stains and like smears on it. It was impossible to get a good shot. It was gross. But you know what though? I was by myself at the Bean, and I saw two other people. It was two guys, and they were trying to get like a selfie, like a photo of them together. I was like, hey, want me to just take a photo for you? I took a photo for them. Then I proceeded to take photos of like 4 or 5 other groups of people. So that was cool. So like people kind of like formed a little line, and I took photos of other people. So that was nice. It's just another. It's another American city. The Lake Michigan makes it cool. You know, you've got the Great Lake, whatever. You've got it's the wind. There's so much wind because the way they designed these streets, every street's like a wind tunnel. You know, with the buildings, so the wind just shoots down the middle, and you get frozen. But I don't know. I mean, I did all the quote cool landmarks, and it was a day trip. You know, it did its job, right? At night when I was leaving, it started raining, okay, and it was like violent, painful rain, and it was cold, sharp rain, you know, like it stabs you in the back, that kind of thing, you know. So it was hitting you, and like I was like, God, this shit stings, man. Like, and it wasn't snow yet. However, the next morning when I woke up. So Saturday night, I got a hotel in Gary again. Because I left Chicago, went back to Gary Saturday night. And then when I woke up Sunday morning, there was snow everywhere. So like, but when I was leaving the city of Chicago, I was in like that, I'm not going to use the word hail, but but I was in like that frozen rain stage. It didn't fully turn to snow yet.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, you know what? Two things I really enjoyed about the trip were on the way there and back, both ways. I drove through the Appalachian Mountains, right? And you get to see all the red and the orange of the trees, and you get to see the leaves turning, you know? So that was really, really nice. I enjoyed that a lot. And it's just as far as you can see, it's like pure, it's beautiful, right? And you get the sunset with it. So I really enjoyed that, seeing all the leaves turn, and from green to gold and red, whatever. And then on the way to Chicago, so Friday night, when I was driving through Indiana. So if you look at a map of Indiana, there's Indianapolis. The north of Indianapolis is Lafayette. Okay, northwest of Indianapolis is Lafayette. It's another city. It's a dump. And then north of Lafayette is Gary, Indiana, which is where I got the hotel. In between Lafayette and Gary, there is no civilization. It's just farms, okay? So I'm driving at night. It's pitch dark out, right? I've got headlights from other cars, but the sky is totally dark, total darkness, okay? And about every 10 seconds, the entire sky turns red. And then it goes black, and then about 10, 15 seconds later, it turns red again. So it's red for about 3 seconds, and then it goes black for like 10 to 15. It's the lights on the windmills. There's hundreds, dare I say 1,000 windmills in every direction as you're driving on this highway from Lafayette to Gary, Indiana. And it's pitch dark out, so even though you can't see them, but they're there. But when the red lights turn on, they're in perfect straight lines as far as you can see.
Like synchronized?
Synchronized, perfectly synchronized lights. And as far as you can see in like every direction, in front of you, left, right, it was like a fan. It's like in every direction, the lights are just shooting out in straight lines. It was super cool to see. Yeah. So I loved that. And then when the lights turn on, you can see the silhouette of the windmills, you know? And then the lights turn off, and then you rinse and repeat. So, but that stretch of just darkness with the windmills, that went on for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and you're just driving, and the windmills are infinite. You know, you're driving by some, but once you drive by some, there's more in the distance. So the lines just continue forever. I really enjoyed that. That was a super cool, that was a cool part of the drive. I enjoyed it. So yeah, and Chicago reminded me of Gotham City from Batman. And then I learned when returning home and speaking to a few of my friends that they actually filmed The Dark Knight in Chicago. I didn't know that.
Wow.
I was unaware of that. But when I was in the city for the few hours that I was, I'm walking around, I'm like, this looks just like Gotham City. They've even got 2 black skyscrapers in Chicago. Willis Tower or Sears Tower, I forget what the name is. It's a black skyscraper. And then they've got a second black skyscraper. It's not as tall, and the roof is tapered. So it's like, it's not a perfect square at the top. It's like more of a trapezoid, but that one's also black. And the black buildings, they just remind me of Gotham City. So thank you, producer. Oh, it's called Willis Tower. Thank you. Was it renamed from Sears Tower?
That was other.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. There's the black. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So thank you. Yeah. So it's Willis Tower. So Willis Tower is black, and it's like it's very easy to spot because of its height and its distinct color in the skyline. So I thought that was cool too. It's something cool to look at, but really, I mean, you could get the idea when you go online. So Chicago was all right, and it's probably the most underwhelming place I've been to in the United States. Also, when I was leaving at night, so many cop cars. Like, there was just tons of crime. Obviously, I don't know what the crimes were, but on the way out, so many police cars with their lights on. And it's not like they were all in one spot. They were everywhere. Like, multiple cops with their lights on going in different directions. It's like a video game. Like, it's like a GTA server. Like, there's so many people committing crimes. Like, the entire police force is, like, scattered.
It's like Arkham Knight.
It's like Arkham Knight. Yeah, literally. It's like a Batman game. Exactly. So that was Chicago. Now, the second location I went to was actually before Chicago, and that was Boston. Boston's awesome. I love Boston. That's a great place. Its problem is it's very expensive. even more expensive than Chicago. But I mean, I guess, all these nice places, all these nice cities in the country are very expensive. But Boston was very nice. I enjoyed the weather. I went there back in October, I believe. I think it was early October, approximately October 10th, I think. And when I went there, it wasn't cold yet. It was perfect. Like, it was like 68, 65 degrees every day. And it was nice. I went there for 4 days. I really enjoyed it. There were no obese people. You couldn't even find them. It's like they sequester them away or something. I don't even know what they do to them. But I'm walking around the city. I'm just trying to find even a single overweight person, and it's impossible to do. So the whole city was very physically fit. And I don't mean that they're jacked, but they're just thin. They're healthy. They're good-looking people, Lots of Germans, like lots of like European-looking people. It felt like a very international city, but New York is an international city, but it's like scum. It's like international scum, like the worst of the world, like the people you don't want to be around. Boston felt like it's an international city, but of like esteemed individuals. You know what I'm trying to say? Like it's the place to be, Like everybody dressing nice, looks good, really enjoyed it. Lots of Asians. And I didn't like that because when I'm walking around, there's no English. I'm walking through the streets and I hear like fucking Cantonese or some bullshit. And I'm like, where's the English? That bothered me. I don't like that. And I even said to my friend, I was like, this is the United States. Like, you got to be speaking English. My opinion on that used to not be as strong as it is now, but so we were walking around MIT campus. Okay, my friend goes to MIT. Same bro. I went to India with. Same guy. He's back now. They brought him back. His deployment ended, and when he's back in MIT, it's late at night. It's late. It's maybe 9, 10 p.m. And we're walking around MIT campus, and there's still some people studying, doing homework, whatever, in the buildings, right? Well, who's going to be in an academic building at 10 p.m. on a Saturday? A Chinese person, right? Like, white kids are not doing homework at that hour, Certainly not in a public space. So I'm walking through the halls of MIT, and it's all just Indians and Chinks. That's it. And there's no white people. And they're not speaking English. And I don't like that. So I went like a full 6 minutes without hearing English in my own country, and I didn't like that. So, I did enjoy the city. They've got good lobster rolls. They have good shellfish. We did the Freedom Trail, which is like it's like a walking trail, but it's not. It's in the middle of the city. So when people hear walking trail, they think that you're surrounded by like nature and trees. The Freedom Trail, you are walking through downtown Boston. The reason they call it Freedom Trail is because, I'm just going to ballpark it, there's 12 historical monuments along this trail of like the founding of the country. So you hit the Boston Harbor where the Tea Party was, you hit like one of the founders of our country, like it's his house. It's like his house on the corner, and like it's been preserved. There's a bunch of little things like that. That was cool. I enjoyed that. And let's see what else. Oh, we went to Harvard. So when I was what was really interesting was at High Point, where I went to school, we have these green spaces, like where people are theoretically supposed to like have picnics and throw a frisbee, like it's the park of a college, right? You get the idea. But at High Point, there was nobody. Like, no one ever goes outside. Everyone just stays in their room at High Point because the rooms are so nice, you have no reason to leave them. That's my theory. And I think that's basically true. Well, at Harvard, these rooms are very small, right? So it's a prestigious university, but like it's kind of like Chapel Hill. Like, it's old, so the infrastructure is no good, right? So it was really cool to see all the Chinese people on the grass having a good time with their friends, I don't know, playing some kind of Chinese game. I don't know what it was, but it's like Chinatown, dude. Like, there are like Trump's got a point. Like, there are no white people at these Ivy League schools. They're hard to find. But it was nice to see them like interacting and having fun at night. It was cold out too, so I guess they can weather the elements better than me. I don't know. So it was good. We had a good time in Boston with my friend. It was very nice. And then I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's really anything else of note to say about Boston or Chicago. Boston's great. I want to go back. It's a nice spot. I would like to spend more time there. I would like to go to the outer parts of the city, or maybe even like a Red Sox game, which I didn't get to do. But it was really cool. We had a good time. We rented those bikes. We rented some bikes, like some city bikes. There's like an app. You get this app, and it's called like a Blue Bike or something like that. And you activate your credit card through the app, and then you can unlatch a bike, and they just let you take it wherever you want. So that was really fun. We biked around the city. We saw everything. It was good. It was a good time. And those are my travels. While I was traveling, I hurt my foot. Now, did I mention this on the last episode that I hurt my foot? Okay. So when I was in Japan, actually, I hurt my foot.
You did.
Okay,
did.
perfect.
Walking up the steps.
Yeah, right. I mean, all sorts of things hurt my foot over there. My doctor and I, after 3 visits, we now suspect that I actually burned my foot. That's the leading candidate, which would make sense. That's a long story, but my foot is healing. I'm healing from the burns. And I mention this because I've been dealing with this issue since August when I went to Japan. My foot is still fucked up as I sit here right now. It's much better. It looks good, and it's doing well. It's my right foot. I'll show it to you if you want later.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I've got like holes in it. It's crazy, dude. Like, it's insane.
Uh-huh.
That's why we really think it's burned. Like, we're my doctor says 2nd-degree burns, but he's not a specialist though, so he told me he might be wrong. But whatever.
Your doctor said that?
Yeah. My doctor is not a specialist.
Okay.
My primary care doctor looked at my foot, and he was like, he pulled out like a piece of paper, he went to a cabinet, or like he came back in the room, and he showed me like this piece of paper. He's like, well, if I look at this diagram here, it looks like you got 2nd-degree burns on your foot. And he was like, but I think you should go to a specialist so they can confirm it. And I said to him, but the specialist, they're not going to do anything for me. They're just going to prescribe me the same burn cream that you're about to prescribe me. He's like, that's a good point. That's true. Like, and I don't want to pay like $300 or whatever to go see a specialist. So, but all that to say, I mentioned this because my foot, I go to the pharmacy. He prescribes me with this burn cream, okay? And I had this other routine medication that I have to pick up. So recently, my health insurance changed, okay? So I go in to get 2 medications, right? And they ask me for my insurance. They say, your insurance has changed. It's no longer active in our computer. Do you have your insurance card? Yes. I pull out my insurance card. They say, get this. They say, this insurance card is only for medical. It does not cover prescription. What the fuck is this bullshit? They only mailed me 1 insurance card. So I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to get... And I was being very kind and polite, right? And actually, the lady, she knows me. She's the mother of... Her son, the pharmacist, her son is friends with my brother. So I say to her, well, what am I supposed to do? She's like, well, I mean, go home tomorrow and call your insurance company. That's going to fucking be terrible. They're putting me on hold for an hour. It's going to be miserable. And I say to her, and at this point I'm agitated, and my foot hurts. It's burning, right? I'm like, I need this fucking cream. Now, she gives me the prices. Here are the numbers. Ready? The burn cream was $95.
Oh, my.
Okay? And the routine medication that I take was $30. Okay? Now, with my insurance, that was with insurance. So using my insurance, $95 and $30. Okay. Which makes no sense to me because I'm pretty sure that all my prescriptions are supposed to be $5. But once again, this whole system is so fucking broken. I don't even know. Out of network. I guess Harris Teeter Pharmacy is out of network. I don't even know. So let me be like, I'm talking about this right now with a lack of knowledge because of how confusing it is. Okay. And like, I've really tried to figure this stuff out. And then I say to her, well, I'm just curious. I say to her, well, look, I really want that burn cream. My foot's not feeling good. How much would it be without insurance? No insurance. $14. With insurance, $95. Without, $14. This is a scam, bro. Like, I am becoming radicalized against health insurance. This is insane, bro. And I'm like totally puzzled. And then I say, Well, the one that's 30, how much is that without insurance? She says 13. 13. So without insurance, my total cost is $27. With insurance, my total cost is $125.
What? That doesn't make sense.
I agree it doesn't. But I actually went online and I looked into this, and this is common. This is common, what I'm describing, which I was unaware of. I always thought that with health insurance, things are supposed to be cheaper. That's what I always thought. But with medications, that's actually sometimes not the case. The insurance company that you have negotiates with the producer, we'll use the word producer, with the producer of the medication. And then they negotiate a price that I, the insured, will pay. But apparently if you're uninsured, the same company, the producer of the producer of the medicine, they have a flat rate that they charge people without insurance. Once again, it's very confusing, and I want to be very clear. I don't know all the information here, but the numbers I told you, I know for a fact because she told me them right there in front of me. It was 95 and 30 with my insurance, which I did not have on me, or it was 14 and 13. And then she says to me, okay, well, you can call tomorrow. You can call your insurance company, and they can mail you a insurance card for prescriptions, and then you can bring it back to us, and we'll put it in our system. And I said to her, well, if you put it in your system, in the future, can I choose to pay the with insurance or without insurance price? She says, no. Once my insurance is in the system and they've got it under my record, they will now only provide me with the 95 and 30 because I'm now insured. This is so fucking broken, dude. Like, it's actually disgusting.
Does it like go towards your deductible, maybe?
The 95 and the 30 would go towards my deductible. Yes, it would. But fuck that. I'd rather just pay fuck the deductible. I'd rather just pay $27. Like, that's ridiculous. So the whole thing's a scam. And once again, like, I'm not gonna on these episodes, I do a lot of research, and I like to come to the table with at least almost all of the knowledge on the topic that I'm discussing. But with this, like I'm saying right now, like there's definitely information I don't understand. But the fact that I cannot figure it out is like a testament to it's too complicated. It should not. The fact that my insurance card, I need a separate one for prescription, that alone is bullshit. That alone is bullshit. And they didn't even email me the second one. Okay, ridiculous. They're emailing it to me soon. Okay. So it's just, or no, not email. They're mailing it to me soon. Just ridiculous. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to talk about before I move on to Donald Trump is I want to talk about Instagram. So the reason I want to talk about Instagram is because they've got this thing now that's new on Instagram, and it's this, producer, do you use Instagram for like Reels?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Okay, yeah. So they got this section now called Friends. It's like a tab. So when you open up Reels on Instagram, there's like a button at the top of your screen, and I'm pretty sure it's called Friends. And if you click that, it'll only show you content that your other friends on Instagram have liked. Hopefully that makes sense. So other than seeing your own feed, it's kind of like showing you what other people, what your friends have liked, but simultaneously that the computer thinks you will enjoy. Okay. I discovered this very recently, and I'm a chronic user of Instagram Reels. I love it. I'm doing maybe 20 minutes a night at a minimum, but sometimes I hit like an hour a day. I find it funny. It's not an addiction. It's really not, because I can go multiple days without using it. It's just entertaining, you know? It's like, what do I want to do? Do I want to watch a 1 hour episode of TV, or do I want to do 25 minutes of Instagram Reels? It's like it's like a decision matrix. So, and most of the people in our age use TikTok. So even though I have a decent number of connections on Instagram, a very small percentage of them actually use Reels and like posts. You understand? So I've only got, let's ballpark it, 20 people that it's showing me content from, because there's only 20 people that I follow on Instagram that are my friends that are like liking content. Okay, so you start to see, and I'm mentioning all this because you guys are sick fucks. You guys are absolutely sick fucks. The content that is being recommended to me is diabolical. Like, so some of you guys out there are liking the most heinous content. We're talking racism. They're funny. It's always funny. But it's like, here, like, I've got this one guy on Instagram, and every single post that he likes, that I then see, is a racist post. Like, he doesn't even spice it up. Like, he's only liking, like, racist comments, like, racist, you know. And once again, they're all anti-Israel, all of them. They're all against Israel. Let me be very clear about the type of racism we're talking about here. We could even argue it's just no. It's definitely racism because it's more than just Israel. It's the Jewish people. And I think a good deal of them are funny, but it's like every post. Come on, man! Like, give me some diversity. You know, do yourself a favor. You know, because I'm sure that if I turned on his phone, it would just be like you'd be sent to jail. I'm sure. Like if other people saw his content feed, you know. So a lot of these people I get very concerned about. I've got this other situation going on where I have a friend who's in a relationship. She's a girl, okay, and she is with me on Instagram, and the content that she likes and is recommended to me is content that speaks poorly about her boyfriend. So, for example, the post will be like, what it looks like when your husband won't carry in the groceries. Okay, things like this, like, and I'm not gonna but stupid shit like that, like talking poorly about your partner, and she'll like it. You got to be careful, guys. Like, if you're on the internet, you can't be liking, because I'm watching, I'm there, I see what you're liking. So, like, if you're liking this kind of content, you don't even have to tell me. I know there's now turmoil in your relationship. Like, you got to make a burner account or something. Because in a relationship, the problems within a relationship should remain within that relationship. But on Instagram, that is not the case. It's actually, I've never caught a man doing this. The men, it's always like, I'm so in love with my girlfriend, and then I see that post. It's the girls, and look, I have a smaller sample size with the girls, but the girls is like, he's a piece of shit, and then I see that, you know? So, you know, and I'm sure there's some guys out there that, you know, are liking content against their own girlfriends, but that's just not the content. No one I follow is doing that, is what I'm trying to say. But it's like super awkward, and like you see it progress, and it's like, you got to keep that shit to yourself. Like, you need to have that online awareness that I'm watching, you know? You need to have that awareness. Because, like, I'm there. You know, the second that you like a post, you're basically just involving me in the conversation, you know? Whether you want to or not. It's going to happen, right? And then the third thing I want to talk about is these other people, and these people, they're like a shell of themselves. They're like a lifeless husk. So the content that they're liking, it's so bland, and vanilla wouldn't even be, because at least vanilla is a flavor. Like, it's soulless, bro. Like, here's an example. Let me give you an example. Yeah. I got this. I'm really thinking about one person in particular. Okay. So this one person, I'm actually concerned about their mental health, because all the content that they like, it's this. They say it's a post with, it's always like classical music in the background. Think piano. Then you've got rapid flashing images of like a luxury lifestyle. It's not cars. It's like a house on the hills, or like a kitchen with all white and gray color palette, or a campfire, or a person walking on the beach. These are nice things. These are things I enjoy. But this is not the content I'm liking on Instagram. It's getting curated for me. It's like lifestyle glamorous bullshit. You know what I'm trying to say? It's not flaunty. It's not showy. It's not like, look at my beautiful dress or my jewelry. It's not that. It is like very It's very white picket fence. Think that kind of vibe, right? White picket fence. Look at the interior design of my kitchen. It'll like the post will be like my dream. It'll say the words my dream in white, and then behind it it'll have like a bunch of flashing images, but all of them are just like basic Americana, like just a basic life that anybody like. So their dream is just like a basic life, which is very attainable, mate, right? But it just oozes like loneliness, and you get worried about the person. And I'm actually like I get concerned. Like I'm like, hey, all of you guys listening, like I am now your secret therapist. Like I'm looking at all the content you like. So this girl, all the posts that she likes are very disturbing. In terms of like she's like a husk. Like there's nothing there. And I find myself on my phone, I'm scrolling like a maniac. I'm scrolling like 50 times just to find another post that she's liked. And sure enough, it's the same bullshit. And I'm asking myself, like, my God, like, what? Like, this side of the internet, I didn't even imagine it existed. So I find myself, like, getting too involved in the lives of my friends, and in some cases, worried about them. I would actually prefer to, like, come across, like, and learn that my friend's, like, a racist. I'd actually prefer that to this. Because this is like, oh, they're in trouble. Like, they're in danger. This is the kind of behavior that it's like it's like Patrick Bateman. It's like that, but for a woman. It's like the same kind of idea, though, right? Of like a very empty, materialist life. But once again, not materialist in a showy way, but materialist in a, I want an ultra renovated kitchen with a microwave that pops out of a drawer. It's like bullshit like that. Like you see what I'm trying to say? Like, who the fuck likes this content on Instagram, right? It's like a hidden community. So just know before we move on to the next segment that I'm always watching, and some of you guys I'm really worried about. So we're gonna take a quick ad break here, and then we're gonna get into the meat of this episode. Times are changing, and new languages are emerging in the good old US of A. Do you feel prepared for the world of tomorrow? If not, come visit us at Middlebury in rural, secluded Vermont for an 8-week Arabic immersion program. Arabic is one of the fastest growing languages in America due to the superior fertility of its speakers. Known for its persuasive charm, Arabic has swept across and conquered hundreds of nations over thousands of years. It is truly timeless. Here at Middlebury, we make all attendees pledge to only speak Arabic for the duration of their stay. Those who cannot rise to this challenge opt for a vow of silence rather than feeling the wrath of jihad. We prepare attendees to not only speak Arabic, but understand its powerful roots nestled within the Quran. Within your 8-week immersion, attendees have the privilege of reading the entire holy book. Other daily classes are also offered, which include espionage, hijacking, and bomb making. So if you're interested in staking your claim within the America of tomorrow and a CIA watch list, join us at Middlebury. See you next summer. Thank you to our sponsor, Middlebury. We're going to jump in here and start talking about Trump. So on September the 30th, Trump held a rally, and I'm going to use the word rally, for the generals of this great nation, our military generals, our top brass, you could call it. He calls them all together. He calls his people from all the corners of the earth, puts other operations, military operations on hold, put these guys in a room, and starts talking to them like it's a South Carolina rally. He wants applause. He wants them to feel like they're friends. It's like, bro, these are not regular citizens. And you should not be mixing politics with military. Like, you should always keep those things separate. You should not use the military as a platform to give a political speech. What I liked about this, though, and what was encouraging, I was actually encouraged by this, was that the generals in the audience were visibly pissed off. visibly. There's a very famous photo that came out from this whole thing, which we could very quickly and easily find online. And it's just a photo of a bunch of these generals in the audience, and not a single one of them looks happy. Now, one of the guys I know, and I know you're listening, was like, oh, well, they're just keeping a neutral face. No, no, no. It is obvious. Like, one of the generals literally has his hand over his head. Like, these people are not having a good time. It's embarrassing. And that's good. Trump should be embarrassed because he's a fucking idiot to do something like this. It's also encouraging because imagine another universe. Imagine a universe where these generals were giving him applause and were like egging him on. Trump might view that as like a green light to do even more radical, crazy shit. So I think it's great that the generals they didn't say it with words, but they could tell with their actions. Like, Trump would like stop talking, like expecting applause, silent room. No one would give applause. Pete Hegseth was also there, the Secretary of War. And, oh yeah, that change is official apparently. I called that in the first episode, if you remember. So, Pete Hegseth, he would like stop for applause as well, and like they wouldn't get it. And Pete Hegseth tried plugging his book. He like tried getting the generals to like buy his book by name dropping it. It's so fucking embarrassing. What a joke. And you get a lot of other conservatives coming out. They're like, oh, it was great. It was so cool. Remember, when Joe Biden was president, we got this meme called Dark Brandon. You remember this with the red eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty common. I mean, I think I even referenced it in our first episode here on the channel. The whole Dark Brandon meme came from the fact that Biden gave a speech in a dark red room with soldiers behind him. I'm sure a few of you guys remember this. Yeah, he gives a speech with soldiers behind him in a dark room, and it was meant to appear ominous. And, you know, right-wingers freaked out and were like, Biden is fascist, or he's going to take over, and look, he's abusing the military. This is what they said. They said, this is what the conservatives said. They said, Biden shouldn't be using military power for a political gain. Well, that is exactly what Trump just did, and it's way worse. He called every general together. Biden had like 2 soldiers behind him, just 2. You know, and they weren't even high-ranking people. Trump got every general in a room together and put like our entire military on pause. Super embarrassing. So I don't know. I'm between this and that joke of a military rally they had on Trump's birthday. I mean, the dude has lost so much aura. Like, it's just, there's no way to even gain back the aura. That's how much he's lost. So anyways, then we have, in terms of more dictatorial behavior, Stephen Miller, who is one of Trump's top guys, okay? Super evil, Stephen Miller. I think that Trump is mostly just an idiot. Like, he's old and stupid, and that allows him to be manipulated by those around him. Stephen Miller is, like, actually evil, okay? He's one of Trump's advisors. Stephen Miller is on live TV, and he says that Trump has, quote, plenary authority. Do you know what plenary authority is?
No.
Plenary authority translates to he's a dictator. That's what it translates to. So plenary authority is the idea that the president, or that really any ruler, can supersede other restrictions or balances of power in the government. So it means that you can act plenarily, which means that you have ultimate authority, okay? Stephen Miller says this on TV, live TV. He says Trump has plenary authority, or maybe he said we want to institute plenary authority. He immediately realizes it was a Freudian slip, right? He immediately realizes that he shouldn't have said that. Remember, he's on live TV. So he catches himself and pretends to lose connection. Now, what do you mean by that? Nick, what do you mean by pretends to lose connection? He stops talking, stands still, and freezes. That's right. His whole body freezes. He doesn't move. He's pretending to like glitch out, but he's literally blinking. You can see him blinking. You can see him blinking on live TV. And the host, I forget what TV channel this was, but the host is like, are we losing you? are we losing you? Like they're trying to like establish a connection. And he is just standing completely still, not talking, not moving, pretending to glitch out, but he's literally blinking. So like he got caught. He told on himself. He made it very clear that they already view Trump as having plenary authority, and B, that they want to increase that even further. So Stephen Miller, it's always nice when people just tell the truth, isn't it? And it was nice to see that in a rare moment. So no, he was not disconnecting. He just froze because he panicked and he got caught. So that was cool. And Trump basically does this whole government shutdown thing, and during the government shutdown, he goes to a football game. Okay, he goes to the football game and he gives a speech to swear in new members of the military at a football game. Okay, and he's reading from a teleprompter, and there's nothing wrong with that. Trump would say that's not a good thing. Trump says that teleprompters make you lazy or whatever. I really don't think there's any problem with it. Sometimes in an official, the president cannot be expected to memorize every one of his speeches. Okay. He says while giving the speech, quote, "I," and state your name. You're supposed to just say, "I, President Donald J. Trump."
God.
I know. So like rather than filling in the blank by saying "I, President Donald Trump," or really what it was an oath. So for the new military members that were being sworn in, they are supposed to swear to the Constitution. So they would say, "I, Nicholas," whatever, they're supposed to swear in. But Trump on the teleprompter says, "I," and state your name. He's got dementia. Like he's totally checked out. And the audience was booing him. They were booing him loud. You could actually hear the boos through his microphone, which is crazy. So the American people are done with it. Just last night, I was commingling with a group of young conservative people. All of them were conservatives. And they're sitting around the table and they say, yeah, this Trump 2.0 term is dog shit. And that was great to hear. That was super cool to hear. They're like, yeah, term 1 was great, but this second term is fucking terrible. And that is fascinating. Young conservative people, they're done with Trump. It's only been a year. They're done with him. So the American people are over it. He's refusing, well, the government shutdown is over now, but it went on for it was the longest shutdown in American history. I don't know how long it was in days, but I'm pretty sure it was over 30, I think. It was a long time. I don't remember the exact count. But Trump refused to negotiate and swing just 7 Democrats, our producers the best. 43 days was the shutdown. 43 days. It almost came up against Thanksgiving. It just ended like a week or something ago. And they were already having to cancel flights, all sorts of stuff. Like, dude, just extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Like, that's what the whole fight was about. Like, the Republicans were saying, well, we don't want to extend the Obamacare subsidies because if we do, illegal immigrants will get health care. And the Democrats were saying, we want to extend the Obamacare subsidies because if we do not, regular Americans will see their deductibles double or perhaps even triple on their health insurance under Obamacare. Now, both of those things are actually true. It's true that if you extend the subsidies, that some illegals will slip through the cracks and they will get medical care. It's also true that if you do not, regular citizens will no longer be able to afford health care. So what am I going to do? If I'm in charge, I'm going to say, look, is it suboptimal that illegal immigrants are getting health care? Yeah, that's suboptimal. But given that it's a necessary trade-off because the government is shut down, I would just extend the subsidies because I don't want my citizens to go without health care just so I can be excited that illegals don't get it. Hopefully that made sense. But the whole thing was nonsense. Like, you got to negotiate. Like, the whole thing in government is that you negotiate. And Trump was unwilling to swing 7 Democrats. Like, it's so pitiful. Like, dude, you got to negotiate. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Some people are claiming that Democrats extended the shutdown just so they could win the midterm elections because, election day was November 4th, I think. I disagree with this notion because all of there were only there were only 3 elections that really mattered in this election cycle: governor of New Jersey, governor of Virginia, and mayor of New York City. And it was pretty obvious going in that all 3 of those were going to go Democrat. Like, I mean, Virginia and New Jersey are blue states, heavily blue. And New York City is also heavily blue, and Zoran Mamdani had major momentum. So I disagree with the notion that they were letting the shutdown go through the midterms simply so they could win. Like, I think they were going to win no matter what. So I don't really like that argument. But and then people say to me, Nick, how can you be a conservative but not support Trump? I hear this all the time, specifically from my father. Very common. But the answer is because my loyalty is not to the Republican Party. My loyalty is to the Constitution, the economy, and my nation. That's where my loyalty is, not to a party, not to a person, certainly not a person, Trump is a totalitarian, and he is a fascist. So, and a nation and a country are different things, right? A country is lines on a map, and those change. A nation is like an idea. It's an essence. It's a culture. It's like a sense of like shared values, right? So that is where my loyalty is. My loyalty is not to the Republican Party. So therefore, I think it is totally reasonable to be a conservative, but to not support Trump, because I don't even think Trump is a conservative. I think Trump is a populist. I don't think he's a conservative. He doesn't believe in he doesn't believe in fiscal conservatism. That is for sure. And even on even on social issues, his opinion is really just like whatever is most popular or whatever other people are telling him. That's how it's always been with Trump. But his economics and his foreign policy are very damaging, and he does not act in a conservative way in either of those domains. And we'll get into foreign policy very soon here, and I can get more specific. In this government shutdown, they used the shutdown as an opportunity to lay off federal workers. A large amount of federal workers were removed from the workforce during this shutdown. And a smart friend of mine said to me that Trump was reducing the government labor force in an attempt to reduce spending and reduce the budget deficit. That was his argument. Okay? That was his argument. So by firing employees, it lowers the expenses of the government, and our budget deficit will be less. Okay. You see, on the surface level, that sounds right. But that's bullshit, actually. Number one, federal salaries are a drop in the bucket of federal spending. So I have some stats here. So here we go. The average federal employee, this is the average, has a salary of $100,000. That's a lot of money. 100K is no joke. In fact, if you're making 100K, you're in like the top percentage of the country. Like you're easily top quintile, top 20%. And I did some research, and there are 3 million non-military government workers. So we've got 3 million people earning an average of $100,000 a year. Okay. Trump would have to fire 7% of that 3 million. 7% of all federal workers to get a annual savings of $20 billion. Hopefully that made sense. Mm-hmm. So you fire 7% of the workers, that'll save the government $20 billion a year in salaries that they don't have to pay. $20 billion is the amount of money we just gave to Argentina to bail them out. We just did that. So what? It's not even like Trump is not saving us money. Because number one, he did not fire 7% of federal employees. He fired a great deal, but he didn't fire 7%. He fired less than 7%. So number one, he didn't even get $20 billion of savings by firing these people, number one. But number two, he turns around and gives $20 billion of aid. The government is claiming that Argentina is going to pay this back. Argentina is broke. They have been broke for 50 years. They have defaulted on multiple loans from the International Monetary Fund, which is a subset of the United Nations. They have defaulted on loans that the United States has given them before. That $20 billion is never coming back. Then, as I was doing the research for this little segment right here, that day, while I'm doing the research, we gave them another $20 billion, $40 billion total. We gave them $20 billion in aid, which they'll never pay back, but we're saying they will. And we gave them another $20 billion in currency swaps, which gives Argentina the right, but not the obligation. It's basically an option. Like a financial option, like options. Gives them the right, but not the obligation to swap their peso for the dollar in the future when their currency appreciates. Their currency is not going to appreciate. It's not going to happen. The Argentine peso is not going to get better. And in fact, since the passing, like the currency plummeted, but it hasn't even recovered to where it was prior to this bailout. So the reduction in the federal workforce was futile, number one, because any money savings that did occur, we immediately turned around in a one-time shot and spent and gave to another country by printing. But when we fire federal employees, the government ceases to function. A lot of people have this false notion that like government employees don't do anything. That is not true. Government employees do things. Now, are they working 40 hours a week productively? No. But spoiler alert, no one is. Now, are we paying them too much money? Yes. We are giving them too much money. The average federal employee should not be earning 100K. That's crazy. Like they don't have some skill set. Like an engineer leaving school is not earning 100K. They're probably earning 75. Let's ballpark it, right? They're earning something like 75. You're going to need like 5 years of experience and then maybe you'll hit 100K as an engineer. These government employees are not doing the value that they're adding to the economy. It's not zero, but it is certainly not to the level of an engineer, right? And the reason I'm mentioning this is because we are paying government employees too much money. That's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of it has to do with the unions because these federal employees have unions and whatnot. So firing the workforce is not the solution. Reducing the workforce is not the solution. Sure, you could let go of a few people, but like getting rid of large percentages is not. It's just a drop in the bucket. We then found out through someone took a photo. So Scott Bessent is the Secretary of the Treasury, okay? And Scott Bessent had a text message on his phone from a billionaire hedge fund manager. Someone took a photo over his shoulder of the text message, okay? It was from a billionaire hedge fund manager, and the hedge fund manager is saying, you have to bail out Argentina. If you don't, I will lose all my money because I've invested all of my money in Argentina. Because Milei, who is the new president of Argentina, he ran on like this anarcho-capitalism, low regulation agenda, okay? And a lot of American wealthy people invested a ton of money into Argentina. So when Argentina was on the brink of collapse just a few weeks ago, a bunch of these American wealthy people would lose all their money. But they should, because in capitalism, you should be rewarded for good investments and punished for bad ones. You see, the way our country works now is that we socialize the losses, but we privatize the benefits. When we benefit, we privatize it. When people fail, we socialize those losses. When the wealthy specifically. So it's just unacceptable, and the whole Argentina thing really upsets me. Keep in mind that during this economic crisis, the president of Argentina was on stage giving a rock concert. That is correct. He has the microphone in his hand, and he is singing rock music to thousands of his citizens. It's a surreal thing. It's kind of cool, but it's bullshit that you're doing this in the middle of an economic crisis while coming to us for handouts. Yeah. I don't like that at all. Like, people are upset when Zelensky like doesn't show up in a suit while his country is like in the middle of a massive war, but yet we think it's totally fine when this president of Argentina is like clearly unserious and like doesn't have his shit together. He's also in the middle of a massive drug scandal where like him and his officials are like accused of producing, procuring, and distributing like large amounts of illicit drugs. Like, do I particularly care about that? No, but it gets to the underlying theme of like, these are not the people that we should be giving money to. That's my point. Like, Argentina if you were to take the country of Argentina and then try to manifest them in a human form, they would be like a degenerate drug addict who, like, no matter what you do, you can't save them. No matter how much money you give them, no matter how much you try to rehabilitate them, they cannot be saved. That is like Argentina in human form. So yeah, that's enough Argentina talk. We're going to quickly talk about China. Just a few things I wanted to say. It's now official that China does 1/3 of their international trade in renminbi, which is the Chinese currency, not the dollar. It's a very big ratio, a third. And that number is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So like China's already weaning off the dollar. They're no longer buying our debt. And the reason this is important is because eventually, when they are completely independent of the US dollar, they gain significant leverage over us in terms of international trade, debt markets, credit markets, gold markets. Once they don't need the dollar anymore, and once we can't freeze any financial assets of theirs, because once again, we can only, the US government, we can only freeze foreign assets that are denominated in dollars. Or we can physically seize them, but like that's extremely hostile, you know? So like Russia, for example, when Russia attacked Ukraine, we froze all their assets that were denominated in USD, right? Well, once China isn't using USD anymore, we can't do that. Like, that won't even be an option. So, yeah. Last year, China bought from the United States $12.6 billion of soybeans from the United States. $12.6 billion, that's a lot of money. Last year. And now with this trade war, China bought zero this year. Zero. So there are reports all across the Midwest, and farmers are going to like city council meetings and talking to their representatives. These farmers are going out of business because they can't sell their soybeans. So these farmers can't pay their bills, they can't pay their staff, and it's Trump's fault with this trade war. And these farmers are now kind of forced to sell their land to these big farmers, like these conglomerate farmers, you know? So these family farmers have to sell because they've been destroyed because they can't eat the losses of missing a crop season, right? Absolutely devastating. And with the cherry on top, the United States, our number one competitor for the export of soybeans is Argentina. So at the same time that Trump's trade war is bankrupting American soybean farmers, at the exact same time that's happening, we are giving $40 billion to Argentina, which they will inevitably use to help their farmers. And China is now buying their soybeans from Argentina. So we shot ourselves in the foot twice. Just absolutely ridiculous. Like, the lack of foreign policy and the lack of strategic knowledge by this administration is baffling. Like, people think Kamala would have been worse. This is insane work. Like, this is so stupid, you have to, like, try to fail. It's like failing out of high school. Like, you gotta try to fail out of high school. That's how bad this is. Like, it's, like, if Donald Trump was a Manchurian candidate elected as a spy just to destroy the United States, his actions would make perfect sense. Like, he is not acting in a way that is in our country's best interests. Now, he does act in his own interest, and here's an example of that. Switzerland, we had 39% tariffs on Switzerland. Huge tariff. But what we import from Switzerland is mostly luxury goods. Watches, right? Ski equipment, banking, financial services, stuff like that. They visit Trump. This happened like a week ago. The Swiss government visits the White House, okay? They bring Trump a custom Rolex, custom gold Rolex, and a 30-ounce gold bar with his name on it. That's a gift. They gave him a gift. First off, that's illegal. It's literally just illegal to receive foreign gifts. Oh, well, Nick, it's a candle. They're getting him a nice, no, it's a 30-ounce gold bar. What's that even worth? What's 30 times $4,000? They gave him $120,000 ounce fucking bar of gold, okay? So they gave him $120,000 massive golden bar with his name on it, and they gave him a custom Rolex. And sure enough, the next day, tariffs are dropped from 39 to 15%. They literally just bought him out, but this is not uncommon. This is happening with a bunch of countries. Trump was caught on a hot mic a few weeks ago at an international summit, and I think it was the president of Indonesia, one of those Southeast Asia countries. I think it was Indonesia. It might have been Malaysia. But they catch the leader of that country on a hot mic with Trump asking to meet with Trump's kids about a business deal. Like, dude, like, it is so obvious. Like, there is no denying at this point that Trump is using the office to just benefit himself. Also, this whole fake peace deal with Hamas and Israel, it was all over the news that Trump, it was October 13th, Trump was able to get the 20 living hostages released from Hamas and back into Israel. And that's a good thing, right? That's great. That's a good thing. 20 living hostages in exchange for a ceasefire, right? Well, since that ceasefire on October 13th, Israel has destroyed over 1,500 buildings, additional buildings inside of Gaza. They've killed over 1,000 people. They've done more than 1,000 bombings. This is since the ceasefire. So the ceasefire was never real. And I knew it wouldn't be real. And kind of everybody involved knew it wasn't real. But now the political right was able to come out and say, look, we got to win. Trump negotiated the end of an 8th war. He loves to count all the fake wars that he's ended. But the war rages on. And then we get the announcement that the USA and Israel are going to build a $500 million base on the border of Gaza. And construction will begin in January. They're going to occupy and take Gaza. I've been saying it for months. It all makes sense now. And now that the hostages have been released, Hamas has no more leverage. Now, I don't blame them for releasing the hostages because in their mind, it's the only chance they have, right? But they're done. Like, they're cooked. And it's just sad. It really is devastating. And this military base, the government claims it is to, quote, maintain the ceasefire. That's bullshit. Like, at this point, Hamas is fighting with sticks and stones, you know? I mean, Israel hasn't reported a casualty in, like, months. Or, in fact, it might be over a year, I think. It's crazy that they haven't even reported, like, a single military casualty. And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole situation is gross, and it just really upsets me that ever since that fake ceasefire deal in October, the entire press, the mainstream media, has completely just stopped talking about Gaza, which is really unfortunate because basically what that means is we fell for it. You know, we fell for the ruse. I want to talk about this as well. This is insane. Just a few more quick topics on foreign policy. Qatar is going to build an Air Force base inside the United States. Why the fuck did we let this happen? We're supposed to be building bases in other countries. We're letting Qatar build a base here? And then the USA was like, oh, well, technically it's a joint base. No, I don't want no joint base with a foreign country inside of my country. Oh, well, Nick, that's a double standard. Yeah, I know it's a double standard. I don't want other countries here. No fucking shot. And yeah, if other countries don't want us over there, that's fine too. That's okay. But I draw the line at other countries having sovereign territory, because that's what military bases are considered, sovereign territory. It's like, for example, an American military base in Iraq. Once you're on that base, it's considered American soil. So you're subject to American laws, and if Americans were to, for example, commit a crime in Iraq, but then go back to the military base, they cannot be arrested. It's kind of like a consulate or an embassy. It's the same idea. I don't support Qatar having any kind of diplomatic immunity or anything like that inside of our country. Bullshit. Absolutely crazy. Got to talk about Epstein, because all these freaking emails got released by the Epstein estate. So, and not only were Epstein's estate emails released by order of the House through something called it was a resolution. It's some kind of resolution. But also other countries have been leaking some of his emails. So we have learned from these emails that Trump spent hours, pleurisy, hours alone at Epstein's house with a victim. Now, I'm using the word victim because in Ghislaine Maxwell's email, she literally says victim. She says Trump was at the house for hours with a victim. okay, well, if Ghislaine is calling that girl a victim, well, then she's a victim, right? Like, so Trump was alone for hours with a victim, a young victim. What were they talking about golf? Of course not. Trump is literally just a sexual predator. We also know from the emails that Trump has been on the island, in the house, on the plane. We also learned that Epstein brokered a security deal on behalf of Israel in the Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is one of the many nations of Africa. If he is negotiating peace deals on behalf of Israel in Africa, there's no more debate. This dude was a spy for Israel. Like, at that point, it seals the deal. Why would he be negotiating and brokering a security deal on behalf of Israel if he himself was not a Mossad agent? We then learned from these emails that Epstein was letting Israeli spies live in his house for weeks at a time, and that he was having constant communication with the former prime minister of Israel. Okay. At this point, like, there is literally just no fucking way that this guy did not work for Israel. And he clearly has compromised Trump. So the reason that this upsets me is because not only is Trump a sexual predator, which already he should go to jail for, but even if we're going to believe that's not true, it is at least true that Trump has compromised. They have blackmail on him. And that is a huge problem. Our number one leader is controlled by a foreign state. Not good at all. Very, very concerning. This Epstein stuff keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I have a lot of problems with her, but she was very good on the Israel issue and on the Epstein issue. She just stepped down. She just announced that she's leaving Congress. I forget the date, but it's very soon. So she announced that she'll be stepping down from Congress because she's become disillusioned with the United States and with the leadership apparatus of the Republican Party. And that's sad, because even though Marjorie and I have a lot of disagreements, I think it's absolutely true that she was a representative of her district and for America at large. Our producer's the best. He got me the date. January the 5th is when she'll be stepping down. So she'll wait until after the Christmas recess. So, that's really unfortunate. The last thing I want to talk about really quickly on foreign affairs is Venezuela. Have you been following, producer, what's going on with Venezuela?
No.
This shit is insane. Trump is trying to go to war with Venezuela. It's been going on for about 2 months now, a month and a half. First, we send down a bunch of military boats, like massive Navy vessels, okay? Then we start drone striking fishing boats. And you heard that right, yes. And we are claiming that these fishing boats are bringing drugs, fentanyl specifically, to the United States. That's the claim by the administration, that these boats are carrying fentanyl that will be smuggled over the ocean and presumably land in Florida, for example, into the United States. That's the claim by the administration. Now, here's the problem. Number one, these boats would have to refill over 40 times to reach the United States. That's number one. Number two, according to our own intelligence agencies, 0% of fentanyl comes from Venezuela that enters this country. In fact, the vast majority comes from China and Mexico. So according to our own intel, 0% of fentanyl comes from Venezuela. These boats would have to refill. And on top of all that, the government of Venezuela is releasing the identities of the people that we are drone striking. And they're like, yeah, these are fishermen, you fucking idiots. They're in fishing boats. We drone striked one boat. I forget the number. I think it's 8 vessels now. It might be more. It might be more. One of the vessels actually had survivors, 2 survivors, and they got picked up. And the survivors were like, yeah, we're fishermen. Now, look, they might be lying, but that's what a person who supports the narrative would say, but these people they're not shipping international drugs on a tugboat, Exactly. And even if they were, how about instead of drone striking them in international waters, we interrogate them and give them a trial to learn more information? How about that? Instead of just sentencing them to death instantly? Totally ridiculous. Then Trump is asked, well, are you going to declare war on Venezuela? And Trump says, quote, I don't think we are going to ask for a declaration of war. We're just going to kill people. What the fuck? Total disrespect to the Constitution. Like, so crass, so illogical. Venezuela turns around. They call Trump. They say, hey, look. I forgot to mention a small detail. Then Trump comes out and says, not only are these drugs coming from Venezuela, but actually the government of Venezuela is involved. So now he's looking for what's called a motive. He's looking for a casus belli, a cause for war. Trump is trying to say that we should go to war with Venezuela because their government is procuring drugs that they're sending to the United States. Maduro, who is the dictator of Venezuela, calls Trump and offers Trump, this is real, exclusive drilling rights to Venezuelan oil, which used to be the case before the communists took over. That used to be the case because Venezuela has some of the largest oil reserves on earth. And they're a very impoverished country because of communism, and they're unable to use that resource. But Maduro was like, you know what? We'll do a deal. You guys can have a lot of the profits, and you can do 100% of the refining. So we can get a percentage of the drilling profits, and we can get all of the profits from the refining of the oil. Amazing deal. Amazing deal. You'd think, oh, that's perfect. Let's do it. Trump turns down the deal. Marco Rubio wants to overthrow the government of Venezuela. I cannot believe that we might actually be getting into another war with Venezuela. I mean, we've already bombed their people. We've already killed innocent Venezuelans. The only reason we're not in a hot war where they're retaliating is because Trump wants Venezuela to retaliate, because then we will have an excuse to invade and take over the whole country. But the only other option Venezuela has is to do nothing and just let their innocent civilians get bombed out of the ocean. The Navy commander, the person in charge of that operation, of the drone strikes, of the boats, he resigned. He resigned and then he went to the press and he was like, yeah, what we're doing is illegal and I didn't feel comfortable signing off on those drone strikes. Well, good for you, man. Mm-hmm. Good for you. So he resigned, but guess what? They just replaced him with some loyalist puppet who will now just act without questioning. The whole thing is very scary. I'm very worried about the situation. This is why I always say that Trump's foreign policy is just disastrous. He has very, very bad foreign policy. Kamala's foreign policy would not have been like this. Not even close. She wouldn't be bombing Venezuelan fishermen, Like, it's just another level. Forget the fact that all these tariffs have broken our actual strong alliances. Terrible, terrible work by the Trump administration. We're going to take a break here for our last ad, and then we'll wrap up the episode with some economics. Alcohol is out, and nicotine is in. Try Zyn. Zyn is making nicotine pouches cool again by giving our customers a personal, flavorful, and social experience. For just a few dollars, you can take the edge off or crank it up. To add some sugar to the cool spice of a Zyn, we are launching the Zyn 10 Challenge. Try Zyn for 10 days and track your flavor preferences on our app to receive a free package of Zyns delivered right to your doorstep. So tell your friends and spread the word. Nicotine is in with Zyn. We're happy to have Zyn as a sponsor. It's been a long time coming. I've really seen their brand grow in popularity over the last few months, and I'm really just happy to spread their message. Let's talk some economics. So with this government shutdown, the government has decided not to release the October jobs data. But we know the economy is weak because even if the government isn't going to release the data and they're going to try to hide. Also, keep in mind, previous government shutdowns, they did release the data. They're just using this shutdown as an excuse to not release the data. They've done it before, and the reason they're not is because you guys are active listeners of the podcast. You know that we've had multiple months of job losses and terrible job numbers and markdowns. So they're like, let's just avoid another bad headline and just not release the data. However, there are private surveys that are done. So here are the private numbers. Now, the private survey numbers are less accurate than the government data, but we can still learn something. The expectation was that in the month of October, 50,000 jobs would be created. That was the expectation. But we actually lost 32,000. Now, once again, we take these numbers with a grain of salt, but what we can say with almost certainty is that we lost jobs, right? We just don't know the exact number. Then we got another report. Now, this number is insane. There were apparently 153,000 layoffs in the month of October.
Wow.
And we know this number just from Fortune 500 companies, which is crazy. This is the most layoffs to occur in the month of October since 2003. These values are competing with the housing and dot-com bubbles. So we are getting major layoffs, 153,000 layoffs. Now, that number, we can try to soften it a little bit because a company might lay off a person, but then hire a replacement. Mm-hmm. But 153,000, God, that's a lot. A little bit on housing. I know that our audience is of, housing is of particular interest to our audience. So here's some more data I found. In 2024, that was last year, investors bought 26% of homes. 26%. So 1 out of 4 houses that were bought by an investor. First-time home buyers were 24%. So last year, more investors bought homes than people who were buying their first home. Dangerous. But get this. In Q1 of 2025, it was 27% of homes. In the first 3 months of this year, 27% of the homes were purchased by investors. So that's up from 26% last year. And 23% of the homes were purchased by first-time homebuyers. So you see the converging of the numbers. Slowly but surely, we're creeping, where investors are becoming a bigger share of the market and first-time homebuyers are becoming a smaller. Now, Nick, that's not that bad. 26% last year, that's 1 out of 4, that's pretty high. 27% margin of error, we'll call it the same thing. What about Q2 of 2025? What percentage of homes in Q2 of 2025 were purchased by investors? 33%.
Oh my God.
So a third of all home purchases in Q2 of 2025 were bought by investors. There's that convergence. There it is. Another stat, by the end of 2025, which is coming up in about a month here, there will be more mortgages with interest rates above 6% than below 3%. That's actually a little bit of good news. And the reason that's good news is, well, Nick, why is it good news? People are paying higher interest rates. Well, it's good news because in theory, if more people have higher interest rates on their houses, in theory, that should lower housing prices. In theory. Do I think that'll happen? No. But in theory, it should. So it could turn into some good news. I would also like to point out, though, that we are now in a situation, it's one of the highest percentages in American history. Over 40% of homeowners do not have a mortgage. 40%. Oh, well, that's great, Nick. A bunch of these young people own homes and they have no mortgages. No, it's the old people. Old retirees have paid off their mortgages and they therefore own their house free and clear. And the problem with that is there's not enough, the supply of housing is not high enough. So basically what you're looking at is if you have 100 houses, 40, let's just say 40 of them are just taken off the market by people that are retired with no mortgage and they have no interest in moving and therefore incurring more debt. So now there's only 60 houses left. Now of the 60 that are left, a third of them were just bought by investors, right? And then the remainder of people, they're fighting over the scraps, but interest rates are very high, and then they themselves, that remaining slice of people, they can barely even afford to get into a house. So the market is really skewed, and there's significant issues within the housing market, and we all know that. Now the numbers got worse in terms of home buyers. So a few months ago, it might have been last episode or the episode before, we mentioned that the median age of a first-time homebuyer was 38. I mentioned that 1 or 2 episodes ago. That number has now risen to 40. So half of first-time homebuyers are now older than 40 when buying their first home. The average age of a homebuyer is now 59. Average age of a person buying a house is 59 years old. And we know this is, but that makes sense because I mentioned last episode that there are more people older than 70 buying houses than people younger than 30. So we mentioned that last episode. So if that statistic is true, it makes sense that the average homebuyer is 59. So just, God, it's just so, the whole system is cooked. It's so bad. Inflation is not looking good. It's in September, the CPI rose by 0.3% in just 1 month, Consumer Price Index. If you annualize 0.3 times 12, you're gonna get 3.6% inflation in a 1-year period. That's devastating. The Fed just lowered interest rates. I told you guys that would happen. Again, they lowered them again. So this is now the second rate cut in recent memory. And the Fed funds rate is now 3.75%. So short-term interest rates are now 3.75%. But we just discussed a moment ago that annualized inflation is 3.6. So annualized inflation and then interest rates, if you take the delta between those two, it's a 0.15% delta, which is basically zero. So what that means is that our economy, we are on the precipice of negative interest rates, of real negative interest rates on short-term debt. Dangerous for an economy, very dangerous. When countries enter a state of negative real interest rates, remember, a real interest rate is the rate of interest minus the rate of inflation. And if that number is negative, it's a negative real interest rate. Let's make it easier. Let's say you have a 5% interest rate on your savings account, but inflation is 3%. Well, you're really earning 2% on your money because 3% got eaten away by price increases. Well, we're on the precipice of having negative interest rates, which means that the interest you earn by saving money is not even enough to account for inflation. I would argue we're already there and that we've been there for a while because CPI is a very skewed statistic, which we've discussed ad nauseum in the past. But even by official data, we're on the precipice of negative interest rates. Negative real interest rates, excuse me. The Federal Reserve announced that they're ending quantitative tightening. Quantitative tightening is where the Federal Reserve decreases the liabilities on their balance sheet. Or said in another way, it is when the Federal Reserve sells bonds. Because when the government prints money, when the Fed prints money, they use that printed money to buy bonds from the government. We call that quantitative easing. When the Fed decides to sell those bonds that they have purchased, that's quantitative tightening. Okay? The Fed announced that they are ending QT, and that means they're going to restart QE. They're going to start printing more money very soon. Calling it now. Probably next year, they're going to be printing more money, and that's going to make asset prices go even higher, and God forbid, consumer prices as well. But even at the end of this tightening cycle, because they've been doing QT, I'm pretty sure since Biden was president, like at the end of the Biden administration, the Fed's balance sheet is still $6.5 trillion, which means that they own $6.5 trillion worth of bonds or mortgage-backed securities. They didn't even put a dent in the damage they did during COVID. In COVID, I'm pretty sure the Fed's balance sheet went from like 3 trillion to 6.5 trillion. They like doubled their balance sheet. It was something crazy like that. But the tightening that they've done hasn't even gotten close to the pre-COVID levels. So that is now permanent baked-in inflation. Huge problem. As a symbolic admission of this inflation, the last penny was minted on November the 15th, 2025. No more new pennies are being created. Now, if you hold these new pennies, or any dimes, quarters, anything, they are actually lighter. They feel and look different than the dimes and the quarters and the pennies from just 10 or 15 years ago. When I was a young boy, I would always hold change. You buy things, they give you change. As I've gotten older, I hold less and less change. But I looked at some change that I was like, this looks different than when I was a kid. And it feels weightless. These pennies, they feel like they're like lighter than a feather. They're making them out of cheaper and cheaper materials, and now the penny's gone because the penny can't buy you anything anymore. It's been totally eaten away by inflation. So yeah, I mean that's just the economic, that's just a summary of the economic statistics. Not really any good indicators in there. I mean, you could try to see some light with, perhaps, what's it called? With perhaps, I don't know, I'm trying to find something here. Maybe, I don't even know, dude. I'm trying to find any light in this information. I don't think there's any. I don't know. I'm really trying. I'm trying, but I just can't. I don't see anything good about this. Every number is just getting worse.
No good news.
No good news. Yeah. Now we've got to talk about what everyone wanted me to talk about. Everyone says, Nick, you got to talk about this. Nick, please teach me. Talk to me about this. The 50-year mortgage. It's very rare on this show when I actually get requests from fans to talk about a topic. But I received numerous requests to talk about the 50-year mortgage. So let's do that. The 50-year mortgage is a terrible idea. It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst ideas. And the 50-year mortgage is so bad that we should perhaps talk about why a 30-year mortgage was a bad idea. You see, before the 30-year mortgage, which was invented in the New Deal by FDR, we had the 15-year mortgage. When the 30-year mortgage was invented, housing prices rose. Why did they rise? Well, they rose because if you can double the amortization schedule from 15 to 30 years on the loan, you will reduce the monthly payment. And people shop based off of the monthly payment. So by reducing the monthly payment, you can justify a higher price of the house. Let's give an example. If the house is $100, a 15-year loan would demand a $20 payment every month. These are fake numbers, okay? $100 house, $20 payment a year on a 15-year loan. On a 30-year loan, we could actually raise the house price from 100 to 200, but the monthly payment is 15. So the monthly payment went down, but the value of the house actually doubled, okay? And that logic just was very detrimental to the housing market during the Great Depression. And using that exact same logic, a 50-year mortgage is very detrimental to the current housing market. Home prices will go up, and you can still increase home prices while decreasing the monthly payment. Now, who had this brilliant idea? Who had this idea? Well, the person who had this idea was the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, Federal Housing Finance Agency. This person is also the chairman of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now, are you familiar with these names, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
No.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were the FHA loan officers. They're government companies, they're government-backed institutions that precipitated the housing crisis of 2008 because they were taking on all of these toxic mortgages. Banks would issue toxic, irresponsible mortgages and turn around and sell those mortgages. Now, what does it mean to sell a mortgage? If you are a homeowner and you get a mortgage from Wells Fargo, okay, Wells Fargo is going to turn around and sell that mortgage to Fannie Mae. So every month when you pay your mortgage, the payment that you're making does not go to Wells Fargo. It goes to Fannie Mae. So Wells Fargo turns around and sells that mortgage. They sell the mortgage for money now. Wells Fargo says to Fannie Mae, if you give me $100 for this mortgage right now, you can collect $20 a month for the next 30 years. So Fannie Mae takes on the long-term risk, but more cash flow, and Wells Fargo takes on short-term profit. So most of these banks immediately, it's called flipping a mortgage or selling a mortgage. It's very common. And some banks who are really big, they will, instead of selling mortgages one at a time, they will bundle them together and sell them as a block. And that's called the mortgage-backed security. Okay? Well, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are very large. They are two of the top highest volume buyers of these mortgages. And the chairman of both of these companies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency has a name. And that man's name is Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte is evil. Now, are you familiar with the name Pulte?
No.
So, Pulte, many in the audience, I know many of you listening, are familiar with the name Pulte. Pulte is a private company that builds houses. They build subdivisions. Here in North Carolina, when you drive around and they're building a neighborhood, you know they put that white tarp on the walls when they're building the house? It might say Tyvek, it might say Lennar, Lennar is another big one, or it might say Pulte. Pulte, this company, they buy land and they will build a subdivision with 300 houses in it. I'm pretty sure that Lawson, which is a pretty popular community in the Waxhaw area, I'm pretty sure that Lawson was built by Lennar, not Pulte. But Pulte is very big. They're like the second largest in the country behind Lennar. They're publicly traded. Now, I spoke about Lennar on our last episode when I was discussing interest rate buy downs on mortgages. But so today we're going to give the spotlight to Pulte, the family business, because now they've got their boy working in the government. So Bill Pulte is running the FHFA, he's running Fannie Mae, he's running Freddie Mac, and his family are the owners of the Pulte Group. Okay, well, why does that matter? Well, because they have a vested interest in increasing housing prices. Of course they do, because that's how they make money. They make money by building and then selling houses. Okay, so here we go. Trump posted bragging on the internet. He made a post bragging that FDR made the 30-year mortgage and now he will have the 50. But what I'm very happy to see, is that the public has come out and they hate the idea. And that's a very encouraging thing to see, that finally people are done being tricked and that a lot of people, even conservatives, are not falling for Trump's bullshit anymore. So a lot of people are upset about the 50-year mortgage. Now, does that mean it's not going to happen? No, the government does things all the time that the people don't like. So the 50-year mortgage still may become a thing, but I'm hoping it doesn't. Here's why. 50-year mortgages will have higher interest rates on the mortgage. Today, a 30-year mortgage will have a higher interest rate than a 15-year mortgage, for example. So a 50-year mortgage would actually have even higher rate than a 30-year mortgage. In addition to that, introducing a 50-year mortgage would increase the price of all houses, all of them. Because once again, as we discussed earlier, it lowers the monthly payment so you can justify a higher price. We are trying to make houses cheaper, not more expensive. So this is not the direction we want to be going in. In fact, they should just eliminate the 30-year mortgage. That would do more good than creating the 50. The 50 would do harm. Eliminating the 30 would do good. So, because that would make housing prices plummet. And then people can actually maybe get their foot in the door. Because the root of the issue, the root evil within the housing market is regular people like you and me have to be willing to sell our house for a lower price than we bought it for. Until that simple reality becomes true, the housing market will never be fixed. It's that simple. People have to be willing to sell their house for a lower price than they bought it for. And that is how it should be, because a house is a used good. Currently in this economy, it is cheaper to buy a new house than to buy a used one. That should never be the case. That should never be the case. So until people are willing to sell their houses for a lower price than they bought it for, the housing issue will never be resolved, ever. So, they also, here's another idea though, in addition to the 50-year mortgage, which I think I've spent a few minutes on and I've discussed why it's a terrible idea. They also want to make mortgages transferable. This is new. Here's what this means. Now, they haven't solidified a definition, but from the reading I've done, this appears to be the most concise and agreed upon definition of what a, quote, transferable mortgage would be. Here we go. A transferable mortgage would allow a homeowner with a mortgage to transfer their mortgage, including the principal and interest rate, to a new property upon the sale of their existing one. So let's say you own a house. We'll call it house number 1. And on house number 1, you owe $300,000 on that house, and you have a 5% interest rate on your mortgage. Traditionally, right now, when you sell that house, let's say you sell the house for $500,000. You give $300,000 to the bank to pay off your mortgage, and then you walk away with $200,000. And then you use that $200,000 to buy a new house. But the new house you buy is probably going to cost more than $200,000. So you use that $200,000 as a down payment, and then whatever's left over, you get a new mortgage on house number 2. A transferable mortgage would work as follows. You sell a house for $500,000, you keep all $500,000, and then you buy a new house. And the new house you buy, you transfer that $300,000 mortgage from house number 1 at a 5% interest rate, you just transfer it to house number 2. So on house number 2, you now owe $300,000, which you've carried over from house number 1, right? This concept already exists in cars, by the way. It's called negative equity, but different discussion. So you roll over the mortgage of $300,000. Let's say the new house you buy is $1 million. You owe $300,000 on that from the first mortgage, and then there's still $700 more that you need to pay, right? You could either A, get a second mortgage. Now, when I say second mortgage, I don't mean a new mortgage. In the first scenario, you get a new mortgage on the new house. A second mortgage is when you literally have 2 mortgage payments every month. One on the $300,000 and one on the remaining $700,000. Okay? Alternatively, you could take that $500,000 you got from selling house number 1, put that as a down payment on house number 2. So house number 2, you now owe $500,000. It was $1 million. You put $500,000 into it. You owe another $500,000. Of that $500,000, $300,000 is the transferable mortgage from your first house, and then the remaining $200,000, you get a second mortgage at a higher interest rate. I hope that made sense. All I'm trying to say is, this proposed plan, you would no longer have to wipe out your mortgage and pay it off upon selling your house. You could instead transfer that mortgage. Now, why is this a bad thing? This is a bad thing because when banks write a 30-year mortgage, even though technically it could exist for 30 years, the bank just assumes it's going to exist for like 12. Because the bank assumes that after 12 years, you're going to sell the house, you're going to move, and when you sell the house, you're going to pay off the mortgage. So even though it's a 30-year mortgage, the interest rate they're giving you is really an expression of like 12 years. Okay? The actuaries in the background, they get what they think the estimated lifetime of the property will be. Maybe it's 13 years. It's really different for every person. They check you out in the background. Well, if you can transfer mortgages, all these people with low interest rates, they're going to keep transferring that mortgage. And therefore, that low interest rate mortgage will exist for the full 30 years. Why would anyone ever pay off a mortgage that's at 2.5% interest that they got during COVID? They're just going to carry that with them for the next 30 years. Well, the problem with that is, once again, that raises housing prices. Because now banks have to raise interest rates because they're no longer going to assume that your 30-year mortgage will be wiped away after 12. They're going to assume that your 30-year mortgage will exist for a full 30 years. So naturally, they will have to raise interest rates. Huge problem. They better not do that transferable mortgage one, but I actually do think that's quite likely. I think that's probably going to happen, which is unfortunate. And I hope the mathematics I explained there made sense. Another thing that Pulte wants to do is he wants to bring Fannie and Freddie back to private companies. They used to be privatized before the '08 crisis. Then when they went bankrupt, the government took them over. It's called conservatorship, which is when a government takes over a financial institution and runs it for no profit, but to protect the customers. The insurance company I work for, technically, if we were negligent, we could be taken into conservatorship. Any financial institution in the United States can be taken by conservatorship. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were taken through conservatorship. Pulte wants to re-release them to the public. And he also wants to remove FICO score minimums on FHA loans. So now anybody can get an FHA loan regardless of their credit score. These two things in combination is a recipe for disaster. Like, you have to be a fucking idiot to think this is a good idea. Unless you're Pulte, because it's a good idea for Pulte because it would raise housing prices. So, yeah, those are the three key proposals that Pulte wants to do. Reprivatize Fannie and Freddie, transfer mortgages, and 50-year mortgages. We are hoping that none of these happen. None of them happen. And then to top it all off, Pulte is now under investigation by a grand jury for tainting and targeting Adam Schiff and Letitia James. Adam Schiff is obviously a senator from California. I think he's a senator. He might be a representative. I don't know if he's a senator. He must be a House rep. But he's from California. Adam Schiff is the asshole that lied about Russiagate. So he's unredeemable. Thank you, producer. He's a senator. Thank you. So Adam Schiff is a senator, and Letitia James is the Attorney General of New York. So it has now been found, and they're under investigation by a grand jury for targeting them for false charges of mortgage fraud. So nice job, Pulte. Really doing the dirty work for the president over there. I'm really proud of you. So, yeah, housing market's in trouble, but, I saw another thing that houses, I just saw the stat and it kind of glazed across my screen, so I didn't write it down. But I did just see something that the average listing, the average amount of time that a home is listed on the market, it's like a new multi-decade high. So houses are taking longer to sell now than like they have during my entire lifetime. So yeah, now we're just going to wrap it up with a pretty quick segment on gold, because obviously we have to talk about it. It wasn't until I saw pure gold as a young man that I understood how Gollum felt in Lord of the Rings. Gollum is always chasing the one ring to rule them all. And he is totally corrupted and infatuated by the ring. Now, obviously, it's about the power that the ring brings, but I think what Tolkien was trying to say is that gold does something to the human mind. It triggers something. Pure gold, the yellowness of it, the color, it does something to you. And I understand that sensation. I understood it once I held pure gold for the first time. And we must remember a key principle that sometimes we can lose sight of, that I can lose sight of, which is that the purchase of gold must be based upon the preservation of wealth that has already been acquired. It is when buying gold with the intent of seeing a price increase that we become no better than a stock market junkie. A gold purchase is to preserve wealth. And to understand gold, you must understand that the purchase of gold and an increase in gold's price does not increase one's wealth. An increase in the gold price is a representation in the dollar's collapse. A noble man should grow sad when gold increases in value, because it represents the failure of the state and the suffering of the people. And I say that because gold exploded past $4,000 on October the 8th. It then shot up to 4,350 within like a 2-week period. And I was sitting there like, holy shit, this could be the end right now. But then it fell down. Silver hit 54, which is insane. But the market has now basically stabilized. Silver has settled at 50, and it's been hanging out there for a while now, for about a month perhaps. And gold has settled at 4,000, sometimes hitting 3,950, sometimes hitting 4,100. So we're kind of oscillating there. And in previous episodes, you might remember this. I had this exact same conversation when gold was at 3,600, and it oscillated there for many months. I expect the same thing to occur at 4,000, and I'm hoping that it stays at 4,000 for a very long time. Not a year, not 2 years, 10 years. We need gold to not go up. And preferably, we need it to go down. In just the last year, gold is up almost 50%. That is a major inflation in this economy. We need gold to stop going up. That is what we need. And we actually need it to go back down, which would be a representation of deflation, which is obviously not happening. But what we need in this country is deflation, which would be represented by an increase in the price, or by a decrease in the price of gold. The last thing that the American economy needs right now is an increase in the price of gold. The national debt just hit 38 trillion. So we've officially surpassed, I took this note a few weeks ago, so we might even be at 38.3 or 38.4. Actually, could we look up the debt clock? I'm actually super interested on that. But even though what the U.S. economy needs is for gold to stop moving and to sit at 4,000, Goldman Sachs is now saying that gold should hit 4,900 in the year of 2026. And we are at, I'm really good at this, aren't I? 38.3 is the national debt. Look how good I am at that. Also, isn't that crazy? It's been like 3 weeks. We've racked up 0.3 trillion in 3 weeks. We're hitting 0.1 trillion a week in new debt. Insanity. So Goldman Sachs is saying that gold is going to hit 4,900 in the year of 2026. They're usually never wrong, but we desperately need them to be wrong. We need gold to stay where it is or even drop. And a really bad scenario is right now, gold is increasing in price for all currencies, but when gold starts to increase only in dollars, but not in, for example, euros, that will represent the death of the dollar. And we need to desperately avoid that outcome. What I find interesting is Scott Bessent was recently interviewed, and Bessent says that he has, quote, no concern over the price of gold. None. Zero. No concern. Jamie Dimon, in contrast, we all know who Jamie Dimon is. Jamie Dimon, in contrast, says that for the first time in his life, owning gold isn't completely retarded, but he sees a major correction. Well, he was right, because he made this quote when gold was 4,300, and then he corrected down to 4,000. So he was absolutely correct in that a major correction was coming. But even a major correction, like, that's kind of extreme to say, because it was only there for it hit 4,000, a week and a half later, it hit 4,300, and then it dropped back down. So it was like a micro bubble. That's not, calling it a bubble isn't even true. It was exuberance. But for Jamie Dimon to say that owning gold isn't completely retarded is a crazy statement. For a guy who makes all of his money on stocks, to say that there is some logic in owning gold, that's concerning. That's very concerning. Especially because a few years ago, he said that it was the worst investment a person could make. Ray Dalio says that gold is now a smart decision. I reference these two because these are two economic minds that I respect. Although Jamie Dimon's thoughts on employment and worker culture are very toxic, but I respect him as an economic mind. So how can so many smart people disagree? Is it because their jobs constrain their ideology? Does Jamie Dimon disagree on gold? Does Jamie Dimon feel that gold is still suboptimal because it is in his financial interest to say so and therefore to believe so? Or did he end up in his current job because of having that feeling? It's very hard to tell with things like that, So, how can smart people disagree? Is it because their jobs constrain their ideology, or is it that their ideology that draws them toward a certain job? I don't know. I mean, personally, I'm a very risk-averse person, and I think on many levels that drew me to become an actuary, right? So that would be an example of my personal affinity drawing me to my career, right? We get another huge bombshell. This should have been all over the news, especially MSNBC and other economic channels. Ben Bernanke, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve during the housing crisis of '08, he admits that he, quote, lied during the Bush administration when he went on TV and publicly said that the subprime mortgage crisis was contained. he has now admitted that he was lying publicly.
Wow.
Huge. But that, you know what? Now we know it was always true that Ben Bernanke was either an idiot or a liar. Now we know that he was just a liar, not an idiot. Okay? Now, he then says that the reason he lied is because the Bush administration told him to. Well, wait a second. The Federal Reserve is supposed to be independent. Because if the Federal Reserve is not independent, if the Federal Reserve is a branch of the government and is acting in the interests of the federal government, then it is unconstitutional. Because a central bank is unconstitutional. That is why the Federal Reserve was created as a banking syndicate that was supposed to operate independently. But Ben Bernanke admitted that he was acting on behalf of the Bush administration, which is therefore an admission that the Fed is not independent, which is something I've been saying on like every single episode. You know, the greatest trick that our government has pulled on us is convincing the people that a gold standard is archaic and that national debt doesn't matter. It's the greatest trick. By convincing people that the national debt doesn't matter and that the gold standard is irrelevant in a modern economy, this has allowed the government to print and print and print and print and never stop. And they have destroyed the purchasing power of our citizenry. Someone asked me a few days ago how we as young people can become, quote, rich during this time of economic poverty. And here's what I said. I said, you can be rich compared to I typed this in the text. You can be rich compared to others around you, but we will all be poor compared to the Americans that lived in 2000. A salary of $54,000 in 2000, that was 25 years ago. A salary of $54,000 in the year 2000 has more buying power than a salary of $100K today. That is depressing. Depressing is an understatement. Let's make it worse. In 1965, a person earning $2,000 a year, 1965, a person earning $2,000 a year had more buying power than a person earning $10,000. That's a 500% raise. Had more buying power than a person earning $10,000 in 1985. Just 20 years later. That was the end of the gold standard. We ended in 71. And the minimum wage was the same between 1965 and 1970. So that number is still accurate. We could even change that to say a person in 1970 earning 2,000 had more buying power than a person in 1985 earning 10K. That's now a 15-year gap, right? Because the gold standard was constant from 1965 to 1970. Here's another one. And this is the most devastating one of all. A person in 1965 earning $2,600 a year. Well, Nick, that's a very specific number. How'd you get that number? $2,600 a year was the annualized salary of a minimum wage worker in 1965. Minimum wage worker. That was your income. $2,600. Minimum wage worker in 1965. A minimum wage worker in 1965 earning $2,600 a year has more buying power than a person earning $280,000 today.
Oh my God.
If you, and I know you're listening, and I know you do, if you earn under $280,000 a year, which I know you do, you have less buying power than an uneducated minimum wage worker in 1965. Well, Nick, how can that be true? Well, let's just look at the facts. In 1965, a minimum wage uneducated worker could support himself, his wife, and 3 kids. Today, you need 2 educated people with monster incomes to maybe afford 1 kid. That should be enough evidence alone. So that's right. That is correct. And they're saying, how can this be true? Yes, it is true. Minimum wage workers in 1965 had higher real incomes than doctors do today. That is the destruction of a nation through money printing and through inflation. So it is only when you reach an income of $280,000 that you can finally live the life of a minimum wage worker in 1965. How is it possible? An obvious follow-up is, how is it possible that we attained such wealth? Well, we were a global hegemon, a titan of industry. We were producing for the whole world. We had excellent schools. Everyone wanted to come here for college. Higher education meant something, but it wasn't a necessity, right? The entire demographic and economic makeup of this country has completely changed since 1965. And that stat alone pretty much says it all. And I feel that I have failed you, the audience, in my responsibility, because I feel like this is a number that I should have given you long ago. And I'm sorry that it took me 7 episodes to finally get to it. But that really just shows, like, we're cooked. We're totally cooked. So I want to end off with a little story and then some thank yous. I want to tell a story about 2 brothers. So these 2 brothers, they were called the Hunt brothers, H-U-N-T, the Hunt brothers. The Hunt brothers were around in the 1980s. They were some of the richest. They were Americans. They're Americans. They're American brothers. A story as old as time. They were some of the richest men on earth. Anywhere on the earth, anywhere you could go, the Hunt brothers are some of the richest guys that you can find. The Hunt brothers had an idea. They saw that the United States was going through a period of massive inflation, and the Hunt brothers were unhappy that all of their wealth was being inflated away. Now, it was true that although their wealth was being inflated away, so was everyone else's, which goes back to what I texted someone earlier. The Hunt brothers were still going to be rich compared to those around them, but their standard of living was going to decrease. Because as we discussed earlier, in just that 15-year period, salaries only had 20% of their buying power, which is crazy. So, and also keep in mind, salaries now have 50% of their buying power. From 2000 to 2025, we've lost 50% of our buying power. That's very bad. That's very, very bad. But in the 70s, in a 15-year period, you only had 20% of your buying power. That's even worse. Okay. So what did the Hunt brothers do? The Hunt brothers wanted to protect themselves from inflation. So they had an idea. What if we bought all of the silver on Earth? That was their idea. So here are the numbers. They bought so much silver that they drove the price from $5 an ounce in 1973. Silver was $5 an ounce in 1973 to $50 an ounce by 1979. And that was just from them. The Hunt brothers personally bought 200 million ounces of silver. This was half the global supply. They bought half of it. The price then collapsed because everybody realized that the Hunt brothers were not going to use the silver for industry. They were never going to sell it. They were just going to keep it in the bank under their mattress, quote unquote, to protect their wealth. You see, the Hunt brothers didn't understand something that we must understand. Gold and silver have value as reserve assets, but their value as a reserve asset is nestled in the fact that they have intrinsic industrial properties, and that gives them intrinsic value. This is why Bitcoin and crypto have no value, because it is no different than the Hunt brothers. The Hunt brothers bought about half the silver, literally half the global supply of silver, and then they were just going to do nothing with it. Well, at that point, if you're going to do nothing with it, it might as well not even exist. So other people said, you know what, fuck this. And the price collapsed from $50 to $10. Now you're saying, well, who cares? Because when they started buying, it was $5. Well, no, because when they started buying, it was $5, but then they were buying, and all of their buying, their average buy price eventually reached about $36. So when the price collapsed to $10, they went bankrupt. And then they actually went to jail for fraud. So because it's hard to get your hand on, that much cash, to buy 200 million ounces of silver. The price then went from 10 down to 5, back to where it was, pre-inflation. So, and the price of silver stayed at $5 an ounce, which was the 1973 price. It stayed there until 2003.
Wow.
And in 2003, I'm pretty sure that's when gold hit 1,000. Maybe that's when gold hit 300, but it might be when it hit 1,000. And silver went from 5 up to 15 in 2003. So the reason that this story is important is because people always talk about, why should gold have any value? Why should silver have any value? It has value because of its intrinsic properties. And the Hunt brothers didn't understand that. The Hunt brothers were treating silver the way people today treat Bitcoin. The Hunt brothers were treating silver like it had value simply because it was silver. And people today treat Bitcoin like it has value simply because it's Bitcoin. Well, this simple existence of something does not give it value. It is the properties of it and what you can do with it that give it value. And the Hunt brothers didn't understand this concept. Now, they could have gotten away with it. All they had to do was buy all that silver and then use it in a productive capacity. Then they would have profited. But they didn't do that. They just sat on it. And that is why even today, plenty of gold sits in vaults and does nothing. But much more of it is actually used to do things. So because of that, you need that underlying use, that underlying industrial use, which necessitates that the precious metals keep their value. And perhaps the Bitcoiners of today could learn something from the Hunt brothers, an all-American story. So now in closing, I just wanted to, this will be our last episode of the year. I'm going on some incredible adventures. And when I return in February, I'm very excited I'm sure great things are going to happen, and I can give you guys some more stories about my travel. I wanted to take a moment and reflect on the past, the recent past. And, life is not measured in time, or it certainly shouldn't be measured in time. Life should be measured in moments. That is why a 2-week vacation to Japan or a 60-hour excursion to Chicago can feel like an eternity. The reason I say that is because the last 2.5 years of my life have been my best. They have been my wonder years. I have seen too much, connected with too many people, and overcome countless feats that I thought were impossible. I find myself becoming more brazen, constantly pushing the envelope, secretly hoping to fail, because then I will know my limit. Yet I have only proven myself to be limitless thus far, getting away with more and more adventures, more shenanigans. I push myself further and further, long drives, walking on an injured foot for months, battling sleep demons. Humans were never meant to live like this, to have this much agency. I often question whether I should hang up the cape and cowl, choose the simple life, not because I'm settling for it, but because it would be better for me. Every day feels like an out-of-body experience. Even today, to bring you this episode, it will be 7 hours of driving. That doesn't even faze me anymore. I feel like I'm floating from one dream to the next. There is no stability, only chaos. But in that chaos, I have grown so much as a person since graduating college. And that's why I can say that these have been the best 2.5 years I've ever had. I want to say thank you to you guys, the audience, for joining me on this adventure. It's been great, and it's not over, but it's always nice when I see you guys and you say, hey, that was a great episode. And then we talk about one or two of the segments that you cared most about. Or, hey, that was a really hilarious ad. Or, your intro really got me thinking. It's an incredible thing to be able to express yourself creatively, and you guys are just as important in that process as me. Because although I'm talking to a microphone, I'm not talking to a wall. And those are two very different things. I also want to say thank you to my producer, who goes through a lot of work and deals with a lot to make this happen, making up the time it's a time commitment, the software, the editing, and being an excellent voice on the other side of the microphone. So let's show some love for the producer, perhaps in the likes, or shoot him a text message, because I know a lot of you guys have his phone number. But I want to say thank you, and Merry Christmas. Hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving, and I will catch you guys in February. Cheers.